Hello, this is Lafayette Faust, creator of the Nevermore Hollows podcast, and we're going to start a new series where we take certain horror movies and we just kind of talk about them and break them down and try to decide, are they important? Were they important then? Are they still important now? And basically at the end of it, do we like it? So with that, I have Chris Goins with me and Tony Howard with me. You know Chris. He's been on some of the other episodes that we've been doing, and he's the artist for Nevermore Hollows. Tony is new, and Tony is my brother-in-law, and Tony is a horror freak. He knows everything there is to know about horror movies. So we're glad to have him as part of this. So the first movie that we are going to talk about is 1974's Black Christmas. Now, this is a movie that was presented to me and Chris by Tony, and so I'm going to open it up, and I'm just going to ask Tony to kind of tell us why, Tony, did you present this as the first movie for us to watch?
For me, it was the fact that it's just completely creepy. It's got a real creepy element to it. And one of the things that struck me about this movie is you have to understand this was made in 1974. This is before Halloween. And I've read where there's been conversations with Bob Clark and John Carpenter. Okay. And John Carpenter asked him, said, if you could do a movie, a sequel to that movie, what would you do? He said, Al, I don't know, but I believe I'd get it where the guy comes out of the asylum, maybe centered around another holiday and call it Halloween. He's killing babysitters. And John Carpenter was like, "Oh, okay,
okay." Well, so that makes sense to me because I clearly could see that this was in the Halloween universe. Clearly, I mean, it had that opening scene where you're looking through the killer's eyes.
Oh yeah,
that was full on Halloween right there. Michael Myers, you're looking through that his vision. So it makes sense. Chris?
And I noticed, because I really watch real weird, obscure movies, that there was a movie in the 80s called Pandemonium that spoofed this movie. And I didn't know that. This is the first time I watched Black Christmas.
Okay.
And it had the same first person point of view going and doing pretty much the same things. And it was in it was in an all-girls school.
Okay.
And it was a comedy, but as I watched it, I noticed that this is a template for all these other slasher films, and because it was 74, they really couldn't show anything graphic, and I was really hoping that Margot Kidder was going to get killed because Lois Lane was a jerk in this movie.
Look, she was. She played that role well because I hated her from the get-go. But I've never been a Margot Kidder fan anyway.
And John Saxon was in it.
Okay,
John Saxon is the man.
In the credits, when it said John Saxon, I said he's going to be a cop.
Yep.
John Saxon's always a cop.
Yep.
He was a cop in a Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. So I was glad to see that because he's one of my favorite old school actors.
Oh yeah, man, and he always plays it good.
Yeah.
I love that certain character actors, no matter how good or bad the film is, that whatever they're in, that's going to be a good scene.
You're right, and that was true with him. Now, I'll say this: I was not a fan of the movie.
It's a little weird, and that's saying something from me.
But it was a good movie.
Yeah,
I wasn't a fan of it, but it was a good movie. And here's why I like. Well, one, because John Saxon. He played that role well, but everything about this movie should have worked for me because it was shot well. From that opening scene where you're looking through his eyes and you're looking at that sorority house, and it just the house was creepy. The night was creepy, the breathing was creepy, everything was creepy. It was shot well, but for me it just fell a little flat. But one of the things I wanted to note here is, when you look at some of these older movies like that, and it was shot on the film of the day, which was a little grainy, it added to the creep element.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
You know,
if you were to reshoot that same scene today with the crispness of 4K, I don't think it would have the same effect.
No, and the sound effects, the good sound, the whistling of the wind outside, and and it was the same sound in the attic.
Yeah.
That it was a really old house.
Yes.
And when the little girl in the first kill scene, I'm like, why is she packing in the dark?
Right.
and it's, again, in these movies you have to have no common sense.
Yeah.
And no lighting.
Right. Yeah,
But
you're right. The lighting plays a big role
Yeah.
in this. And you said the sound effects and stuff like that. I noticed too, there was not a lot of music in this movie.
No, there was no music cue
That's right.
like in the 80s slasher film.
Right.
What about the phone calls? What did you think about the
Oh,
phone
well,
calls?
that's one of the things that Tony always told me. He says, Alan, the phone calls are so disturbing and filthy. And and that was filthy for 1974.
Yeah, that was bad for 74.
That was
Right.
pushing.
And I could see how at that time it would have been shocking for the audience.
Well, see, and that's a callback to, I think it was in the 60s. There was or maybe early 70s, there was a thriller where the caller, it's the babysitter and the caller's in the house.
I think that was in the 70s. I know
Yeah.
the one you're talking about. And then there was there was a stranger in the home. Is what
Yeah,
it's called.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's, and that's a trope all the way up to Scream and everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
But, Andrea Martin from SCTV is one of the girls.
Really?
Yeah, and and she's Broadway actor. She's incredibly funny.
Yeah.
And she was Phil, girl with glasses.
What? Yeah, that's where I saw her. Yes.
They broke
Yes.
one of the cardinal rules. The virgin got killed first.
And I was thinking about that last night. I said, in every slasher movie, it's the virgin who is the final girl.
Yeah.
The virgin. They were even saying she's a virgin. Whack. They
Yeah.
whacked her the first scene. Man.
And that was because I was watching it and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So Tony, what did you think about the phone calls?
Well, I loved them. I thought they were just spot on perfect.
Yeah.
A little bit, they were kind of on the vulgar side back then. But
Yeah.
and I got to read about that. Man, they would put people, it was like 3 or 4 different people participated in making those and recording those phone calls for that movie. One was a guy named Nick Mancuso.
Was he?
You heard of him?
Yeah.
And he actually stood on his head in a corner to compress his vocal box. And they were having fun doing it. It wasn't just to get all these different types of sounds. It's Bob Clark. Some of that's his voice on there.
Really?
Several different people's voices.
Well, you could tell that it sounded. I was thinking where they were going to go with this was that he had multiple personalities.
Yeah.
But you know what? They never explained it.
No, and they gave you several different guys to choose from
Yeah.
in the beginning. There was all the boyfriends
Yeah.
and the dad and this, and they didn't really. And again, even though you think you know who it is, then at the end it's like,
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on? Because I know you've delved deeper into the movie. Who do you think it was? Do you have any idea?
I don't believe it was anybody that was in the movie.
Yep.
I believe it was just a foreign thing. And that, to me, that's what makes it creepy, is just a spontaneous guy doing these things for no reason whatsoever. The mystique of it. To me, that's what got it was a mystery. Here comes a guy that's not even affiliated or associated with these people doing these type of things.
Well, and that's like one of the brilliant things of Halloween is we don't know why Michael Myers is doing what he's doing. Now, I feel, and this is a conversation we'll do later, because I don't want to get into this, because Tony and I were talking before you got here, Chris, is we want to do this again with the Halloween movies.
Yeah.
But when they, in Halloween 2, when they make that connection that Michael is Laurie Strode's brother, it worked, but it took away from that mystery.
Yeah.
Like in this, where we don't know who this guy is, you're like, what the hell, man? And one of my favorite writers is Dean Koontz, and he likes to write stories occasionally where there's no rhyme or reason why you were singled out, and he says that's part of the terror. There's no reason that it should have been you.
He worked his way up. You find out later he kills the little middle school girl, and then he gets to the house where all these other girls are. And, I like the fact that you don't know, because the boyfriend was a jerk.
Yeah.
And he was off.
Right.
But he was just, he's just a whack job. And I liked the ending.
Yeah, I did too.
Because dude's still in the attic,
right?
And he's waiting on the next set.
Back in the day, I know we all were Hitchcock fans, right? Mm-hmm. And I love reading Hitchcock quotes, and one of the quotes that he's famous for, and I'm going to murder the quote. He's like, "What you don't tell can be more disturbing than what you do tell. Let the audience make up their own minds here." Precisely. So that's literally what happened here. We don't know. Is it what is? But they do give us some clues. Like he wraps her head, Claire. Okay, yeah. So I thought that kill was that whole scene where he was in the closet looking through through the plastic and all that, and when he kills her, and then he takes her upstairs, and he stages her in the rocking chair, and then gives her the creepy doll
and puts her in the window
and puts her in the window.
That's creepy to me.
And that's just that's psycho.
Yeah,
that's.
And then when he kills the house mother, okay, when we see it, she's looking at the body at that last scene, he's rocking her.
Yeah.
So there's so many unanswered questions there. So that's why I'm saying I wanted to love it more than I did, because it is well done.
Yep.
But for some reason it fell flat for me.
It did. Well, the guy had a name, I believe, in the phone calls. Did you hear what he was? It's me, Billy.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Agnes. It's me, Billy.
Yeah, Agnes.
So see again, all right. So this is one of those things where sometimes you watch something, or you like. I'll take it like albums. Okay, you listen to an album and you go, "Gosh, I hate this album," and then you come back and you listen to it later and you realize it's a brilliant album. I'm kind of having that moment right now, because as we're talking about it and we're having to fill in these gaps, it's brilliant.
I thought it was. It's been one of my favorites.
And well, it's simple.
Yeah.
You got killer, girls, inefficient police.
Yeah.
You throw in the townspeople who are just running around with guns in the middle of the night. Right. And why did they keep going back to the house?
Right.
And
why did they not ever look in the cops there at the end? They looked in the whole house, but not the freaking attic.
Yeah, nobody went upstairs.
Yeah.
It was just, I did like the complexity of tracing the call.
Yeah, I showed that scene to Ethan.
That was a weird, and it just, and he even said it. This is a machine.
Yeah.
This.
So. We for years we've always heard you got to keep them on the line. We got to track it, and you're like, well, how hard can it be to track a call? This dude was in a massive warehouse full of these relays, and he was running through trying to follow that clicking noise to get to the relay to where it was. Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
That
was pretty cool, and but yeah, it was. I liked it.
Yeah. So to get back to that moment we're having where you and I were like, we kind of liked it, and we see why it was important and all that, but it really didn't resonate with us. It's starting to resonate even more with me now that we're talking, well, who was Billy? Why Agnes, did you say?
Agnes,
yeah.
Who was Agnes? Was Agnes was he staging the Claire? Was that Agnes?
And there was, what was it? What your mother and I want to know. I think that was part of it.
Yeah. Don't tell them what we did.
Yeah. And so I want to know, now I'm like, well, like you said, I want to know who Billy is and why is Billy, what happened to Billy?
Right.
And and why did they leave that girl at the end in her bed and everybody just left?
That's exactly when I first saw that movie. Because within 15 seconds, every cop is out of the house.
Yeah.
The camera's panning back, and there's that woman in that chair beside the window.
There's one cop at the door, and the phone starts ringing. And I'm like, he's going to die. Dude's going to walk in there and answer the phone. And that's Olivia Hussey, for crying out loud.
Well, that's like what you said. For it to work, you had to have the inefficient police.
And a guy didn't know. The desk cop didn't know.
Yeah, he was.
And that was
a loser.
I did like that point that cops have to have that
dark sense of humor.
Yeah, and when they started laughing in the middle of all of this stuff, I'm like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So one of the things I noticed is it compared to later movies, it was a surprisingly low body count.
Yep.
And the second kill comes at 41 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of just build, and I think maybe I'm not one of those that I need kill after kill after kill. I don't.
No.
But I think it was that from 7 minutes to 41 minutes, I feel that there was some things in it where they were trying to do character development. I think where I'm coming, I didn't care about some of those characters. I was okay that they died.
Yeah. Well, I've always said this, you don't show the critter, in any horror movie at the beginning.
Right.
And it's the Jaws thing,
Yeah.
the shark was supposed to be in every scene, the shark never worked, so the shark wasn't in every scene, and made it scarier.
Exactly.
And that the only thing that you saw from this guy is his eye.
Yeah.
Or maybe
and that scene where she sees him in the crack, when Margot Kidder gets killed, and then she comes in there and she turns around and he's looking.
Right.
That gave me chills. Was for me. That was the most chilling part of the movie. What did you think, Tony?
I thought that was too. Yeah.
That was brilliant.
That was great.
It was brilliant.
And like I said, the phone calls for me did it too.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just. I just don't know. It's just got a creepy feel.
Yeah.
Even though there's humor in it.
Right.
And see, Bob Clark was able to put humor in something and bring it back.
Yeah. Well, look, humor and comedy do go hand in hand.
Oh, yeah.
People don't think that, but it does.
Yeah, you got to think in '74, everybody answered the phone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We didn't have these things in our pockets all the time, so when the phone rang, it was your duty to answer that phone.
That's right.
This could be something important.
Right.
And
somebody could be hurt.
Right.
What was it? The first call, I think, didn't have Olivia Hussey answer it.
Yeah.
And she had on that shirt, had them that
Yeah,
sweater,
they had that. Yeah.
hands. It was like a diamond cutter from what I'm talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Who?
Yes.
Who is it?"
So
And
hateful.
it was like, yeah, and I was like, I got a hold of a nursing home somewhere. I've got the wrong number here. I'm talking to.
That's not proper phone etiquette.
And she did that twice, though. I mean, I was like, what a hateful hussy.
Who is it?
And nobody explained why this British girl was in this.
Right, yeah.
And everybody was just cool with it, And why did nobody think that it was wrong that she got this kid drunk at a Christmas party?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I know it's the '70s, but dang.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, all right. So yeah. But here's the thing, though. Here's one of the things I did love about the movie, that we struggle with modern Hollywood. There's no message. It was just we want to tell you a scary story.
Yeah.
Let's tell you a scary story. Now there's some sort of message.
There's got to be something behind it. And this is like like he said, it's just some guy shows up.
Yeah.
Crawls up in the attic of this old house.
The randomness of it is terrifying.
The unknown.
Yeah.
That there's a creepy element to that.
Yeah.
Something that we can't
I did
do
like
nothing
him
about.
looking, kind of, when he was peeking out from the tree, getting up to the house.
Yeah.
Because I'm going, oh, this okay.
Yeah.
And there's no backstory, no nothing.
Yeah.
This is just some dude.
And if you could take the first minute and a half, 2 minutes of that movie and Halloween, put them side by side.
Yep.
It's just like a different location. That's the only difference.
Yeah. It's Michael Myers. He just decided to go to the sorority house this time. Yeah. No, I agree, and that's what I liked about it, is the camera work. And so then we come to the third kill. That was an hour and 5 minutes in. And he uses the unicorn thing.
Yeah.
But this where in later movies it became, how clever can we make the kill? This didn't feel like they were trying to force cleverness. It was just, that was what was at hand.
Yeah, he just grabbed whatever.
That was what was at hand.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to tell you what I think the creepiest thing, other than when he was looking through the the crack there. For me, one of the creepiest things in this movie is that freaking Christmas tree. That was a scary freaking Christmas tree. It looked like it was covered in spider webs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
go back and look at that, because I see the look on your face, Tony. Go back and look at that Christmas tree. It's
you
creepy.
notice that the kills got more brutal
Yeah.
as they went.
Yeah.
And then the last one was kind of, and it was just, it was kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah.
And then it paid off though at the very end, which I thought that was that, I was sitting there watching the very end. I'm like, she's dead.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I thought it was funny too when she, because early on she said it can't be Peter.
Yeah.
It can't be. And then all of a sudden she goes, well, it's Peter. And then she runs into the basement. Why would you run into the basement?
And how come? Because she said, that when they locked the back door, she said, this is the only door in this house and window in this house that locks.
Yeah.
How come she couldn't get out the front door?
Right.
She tried.
Yeah.
I think what the reason she thought was Peter because of the comment about killing the baby.
Yeah.
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 But
now when she is in the basement and you're looking at those frosted windows, the way they did the shadow of, I was like, well, that was well done. I thought that was really creepy because I was thinking, oh, it's Billy. If it is Billy, if that's the killer's name, it ended up being Peter. Well, she kills him,
right.
But
when he starts banging on the piano because he didn't get whatever horrible concerto that he wrote was just, gee whiz. And then he starts killing the piano, and I went, oh yeah, he's the Fruit Loop.
Yeah.
But he was just a Fruit Loop. He was not the Fruit Loop.
Yeah, right. So our final girl was really not the cool final girl that we see later on, like Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
She being, I guess we could probably say she was the first real final girl, what we think of as a final girl, where it was this, it was conceptually she's going to be a final girl.
Well, and she was brave and forthright, and she protected the kids.
That's right.
She protected her virginity, and
right.
She was,
and this girl.
We don't know too much about her. She just
other than the fact that she was,
and apparently she's pregnant.
Yeah, she's pregnant and got a weird accent. And runs into the basement when she's running from a serial killer.
Hear a problem too.
What? Yeah.
Who is it?
Yes. What? Who is this?
And they say, hey, it's the what they call him, the moaner.
Yeah,
it's the moaner again. Yeah. So he's been calling for a while.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't pick up on that. Yes.
And that's
what's the Mona.
Yeah, the Mona.
And I didn't want Phil to get killed. I didn't want her to, because I'm like, okay, she's the geek girl. She's the Velma of the group.
Right.
That's she's...
I kept thinking last night when I was watching it, where have I seen this woman before? Where have I seen her? It makes sense now. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing it's strange about, well, I don't call it strange, it's just kind of a little bit of trivia behind it. I read where Steve Martin, who's a comedian, met Olivia Hussey, I think that's her name's pronounced, at a party. And he went up to her and he said, you're in one of my favorite films of all time. And she thought he was talking about Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
So he was like, no, it's Black Christmas. And he's seen that movie over 27 times.
Wow.
Said it's just his favorite film.
Oh, I'd love to sit down with Steve Martin and talk about that.
Well,
I'm sure that's
Steve
cool.
Martin is one of the reasons why I became a stand-up comedian.
Man.
Right? Because back in the 90s, I was a stand-up comedian and traveled the country doing that. But it was because he was one of my heroes. So I just watched a video today. This is an aside, and it was the guy from Married with Children.
Ed
O'Neill.
Yeah, Ed O'Neill.
Yeah.
And he was, and I'll send it to you because I was just watching this morning before y'all got here. And he says, I was out to eat, and he goes, I had my mother and I had my wife. My mother's a huge Steve Martin fan. She never met him. Steve Martin walks in, very polite. It's a pleasure to meet you. All this, just a wonderful gentleman. He goes off and he eats, and he comes back and he says, it's a pleasure meeting you. To the mother, hope to see you again sometime. And he leaves. And it said, Ed O'Neill's mom says, that was wonderful, but I was kind of hoping he'd be funny. And he says, all of a sudden she starts cracking up because he was facing her. She was looking out the window. He had stepped outside, put on a pig nose, and was making faces at her through the window.
They say that if you meet him, he doesn't sign autographs.
I've heard that, yeah.
But he hands you the card that says you have just met Steve Martin and have found him warm and inviting.
That is brilliant.
And it's like Walt Disney wouldn't sign autographs. He had a card that was signed.
Awesome.
And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I got to see him and Martin Short in Chattanooga.
That would have been, those two guys are brilliant.
It was like an hour of them just insulting each other very politely.
Well, they had a thing on Netflix for a while that was like that. So Tony, you know so much more about the backstory of this movie than he and I do. As we're trying to wrap it up here, is there something else about the movie that you would like for us to know?
Not that I can think of. I mean, other than Olivia Hussey said that the only reason she took the part for the film was because a psychic told her she was going to make a lot of money working on a film made in Canada. So she took the part.
Okay,
But other than that, it's just trivial stuff that you would read. But no.
Yeah.
But Bob Clark, he's got some more stuff out there that's real good. Have you ever seen Death Dream? Death Dream, I think it's on TV. Yeah. About the guy that went to Vietnam, small town, and come back. But while he was over there, his family got this message he was killed in combat.
Yeah.
They're while in the middle of grieving, he shows up at the house.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, Death Dream's a good movie. It's still old, and I want to say it came out in '74. About the same. '74 was a big year. He had Deranged, Black Christmas, and I want to say Death Dream.
Yeah, and then what I find again, because we talk about comedy and horror, a lot of people find this interesting. I don't see why they find it interesting, because it makes sense to me. Comedy and horror go well together.
Yeah.
So for him to end up doing A Christmas Story, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. Yeah. I can quote almost every line of that movie. There's something in it that's brilliant, and that's more lighthearted. When I was doing stand-up comedy, I had a guy one time, a seasoned comedian. I won't drop names, but it'd be a name-dropping kind of thing. I was fortunate enough to work with this guy, and he said, "Look, man," he says, "good comedy comes from truth.
Oh yeah.
Great comedy comes from pain." So it makes sense that good comedy could come from heart. There's a reason why you have black sense of humor.
Well, yeah, there's so much from the Friday the 13th and Halloween movies that are it's so absurd.
Yeah, and Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Freddy Krueger, he's always popping off something.
Right.
In the darkness of the moment. Yeah.
And it's funny.
Yeah. So good. All right, so Tony, I'll tell you this. Even though it didn't resonate with me when I watched it on the level I hoped it would, I can see how it's an important movie. I can see how it spawned this whole modern concept of the slasher movie. And now, again, as to recap, as we've talked about it, I'm starting to think I love it more than I thought I loved it. So, Chris, what's your final thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I could see where the movies that came after took a lot of stuff from this film, and I want to see a sequel. But if they shot a sequel, they'd have to shoot it on film.
Yeah,
and they'd have to kind of recreate that feeling, because it would do better. I want to know who this dude is.
Yeah,
and why is he humming up in the attic?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think as much as we want to know that, we don't fall into that Halloween 2 trap of being disappointed when we find out who it is.
No, I think they should. Maybe it would be set because it was on a college campus. Maybe he's become this ghost story.
Yeah.
And that he's just kind of living on campus.
Gotcha.
So
with that, let's try to wrap it up with a question or two on would we? I guess to put it this way, is my question is, should this be taught in film school?
Oh yeah, I think so. I got to thinking. That's what I was looking at there. Did they make it? They made a prequel to this, didn't they? I know they made one several years back that worked. It was at a sorority house, but it was a totally different setup.
Yeah.
But I think they made, because it talks about his last name, Billy Lenz.
Yeah. I know in 2006 or 2016 they did a Black Christmas.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that fits. I've not watched that one. Maybe someday we need to watch that and come back around and circle to this. But I agree that it should be taught, because the filmography.
Oh yeah.
The fact that they don't tell us everything, they don't spoon feed it to us, and that's what makes it, to me, that is the best part of the movie.
The atmosphere was great.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was able to incorporate humor and horror.
Yeah.
And fright all in the same movie like that, and still pull it off.
All right. Well, I agree with that. So yeah.
Check out Death Dream, and he's got another one. Children shouldn't play with dead things.
Oh, that he did that one?
Yeah.
Did he do Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things?
He did it, but it's under the name Benjamin Clark.
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that in 10,000 years.
Actresses and actors go up that island.
Yes.
And the guy in it Alan Ormsby was his film school partner.
Oh, cool.
Ah.
And I believe the dude that was in Christmas Story that put his foot on Ralphie and pushed him down and said, "You shoot your eye," was playing Santa Claus.
Yeah.
He's in it too, I think.
All right, well, that's an interesting nugget because I literally haven't seen that movie since I was a teenager.
It's been a long
I would.
time.
I don't even remember that much about it, other than the fact that I was like, "Holy crap, what did I just watch?"
Yeah.
All right, well, cool. Well, any other comments before we sign off?
I just had fun watching it.
I always have fun watching that movie.
All right, so Chris and Tony, thank you. You know, as we're trying to figure out new content to add to this whole Nevermore Hollows universe, obviously the stories of Nevermore Hollows, that's the main thread of this concept and the podcast and the YouTube channel. But we also want to offer other things, you know, new content, and because this kind of content lets people know why Nevermore Hollows.
Mm-hmm.
Why does Chris draw cryptids? It's because of movies like this that we grew up on. Yes, and for me, that's why I created Nevermore Hollows, is these types of things, and you know, or influences. And with Tony's just a horror nerd, man. He gets it.
I am.
He gets it. So bringing him in to have these conversations, I think, would be great content for people. So if you do like this content, let us know. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, share. Chris, any other thoughts?
No, it's just you know, old creepy movies are good, and
that's a T-shirt right there. We're gonna make a T-shirt. Old creepy movies are good.
You know, keep it creepy, man.
Leave out the CGI and go with it.
Amen.
Yeah,
practical effects. Yes. All right. Well, with that's a whole new conversation. We're gonna have more.
Yep.
You know, as I've been trying to figure out other things to offer. You know, I want to circle back around and not just movies, but maybe take ideas like practical effects versus, you know, CGI, and, you know, start picking some of these iconic monsters and slashers, and let's break them down and talk about them in the future. But this will be the end of this episode. Tony, thank you, brother, for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
And Chris, again, thank you.
This was fun.
All right. And we'll see y'all next time. Thank you.